And our first keynote speaker is a very interesting thing. And I remember when I was in middle school, we call it junior high where I went, the basketball coach made a comment in one of his classes that you always need to be careful about how you treat other people because you never know when you're going to have to work with them or you're going to work for them. And I've thought about that throughout my career, and I worked really hard not to burn any bridges, not to say I haven't burned a few, and not disappointed that I haven't burned a few. But the gentleman I'm going to introduce next, I met a long time ago at Polycom. He was an executive at Polycom, and I had just sold a company to Polycom, and our paths crossed there. And they passed multiple times over the last few years as his career has increased and improved, and he's taken on more responsibilities. And I'm excited now to introduce Mark Roberts, the new CMO, relatively new since the beginning of the year, from what's that name? Shoretel. The pause was, this is their first year here, so I'm just giving them a bad time about it. But we're really excited to have them. So Mark, please.
Yeah, you nearly said my then, didn't you?
I paused.
For those that don't know, I came from Mitel to Shoretel, so it would have been a forgivable slip. I'd just like to make one comment before I do get into this. I am in awe of the ability that you had there to make a reference to a manufacturer as a main Russian battle tank. Of all the years I've been doing this, that's the first time I've been called a battle tank while I was on stage. And the second is, who is Dave Michaels anyway? I know. So one of the cool things about having a job like being a CMO is you get a lot of people that kind of run around behind the scenes and take care of things that you don't necessarily know or understand are happening. And it becomes clearer and clearer to me that that's going on as I get further into the role. One of the really great things is that people do your slide presentations for you. They just present them to you, and then you have to kind of pull it off in front of a large audience. So the one they gave me was entitled, "The CIO is the Cloud." Yeah, I have no idea what that meant either. So we're not going to do that. You'll be glad to know. I've got a set of slides for you that takes you through a meandering look at really what the cloud is today, how we really view it as a manufacturer, because I thought that perspective may actually help when you're interacting with the rest of the manufacturers out there, and really where we see the opportunity, because we feel there is a really, really strong opportunity out there. And so hence, to cloud or not to cloud, rather tacky. The thought of this presentation really started in spring break. I've got a 9-year-old son, lucky enough to head down to Florida, we're in the Panhandle. Lucky enough to have this job, which really means that you work all the hours when you're on spring break as well, as you guys know that too well. There really is no spring break. And Florida being Florida, started off with 4 days worth of rain and 3 days worth of sunshine. Kind of mapped nicely with the call schedule that I had going on and my 9-year-old son's agenda for playing games 12 hours a day, first part of the holiday. So anyway, I'm on one of these calls. And I've got an earbud in my ear, and we're talking cloud, what's the strategy, cloud, where are we going, cloud. And I get off the call after about 3 hours. He's now cross-eyed playing Minecraft or whatever the heck they play nowadays. And he said, what's cloud? Talk to me about cloud. I said, well, given the close proximity really of what I believe cloud is, and I'm sure we've all got our own personal definitions of it. And he kind of went and he paused, and then with all the clarity that you get from a 9-year-old, he said, well, surely the question really is, how cloudy should it be? How much of this stuff do you actually want to do? And I thought, dismiss it immediately, and then afterwards, the kid's right. It's actually how much of this that you want to absorb in conjunction with all of the other activities that you've got going on out there and all of the other applications that you've actually got installed. So with all the insight and naivety of a 9-year-old, that's what you guys are going to suffer for the next 20 minutes or so. So, getting stuff done by the numbers. And we often start off these things, if somebody's taking my clicker, there it is. I got it. So we often start off these things with infographics, normally done by the marketing groups that show really, how well we know our audience, how how in depth we've done our research, that you should believe us, you should listen to us. But instead of doing that and maintaining that kind of theme throughout the entire thing, I thought I'd just pick out just a couple that really resonated for me. So the first one was millennials use IM 46% of the time versus 22% for other generations. Wow. Oh, by the way, this is the first time that we'll actually have significant amounts of 4 generations in the workplace. Looks like a HR problem that is just waiting to explode at that point in time. Now, I know that this is true. For some reason, that was automating there, I apologise. I know this is true, as the millennials that I talk to, the new college grads, etc., taking it down a notch again, that I talk to are very, very task-focused. When you talk to them, you kind of, if you're in that 40s to 50 range, it's more about the hours that you spend at the office. We always wear those things like a badge of honor on a sleeve. The new workforce is not like that. It's kind of, when I get this done, I can leave, right? There is no expectation from any of these individuals that this is the company they're going to retire from and work for any period of time that is relevant, frankly. They're going to do it for 2 or 3 years and they're going to go on to the next company, and that's the way they think about it. And so the tools and the way that they interact, very, very different to the way the rest of the workforce is thinking right now. Another one that caught my attention was a third of all US workers spend up to an hour a day on social media. Now the first thought I had was, if I could get the marketing group to spend an hour a day on social media promoting shoretel, I'd be in a much better position than I am. But anyway, that's my own personal dirty laundry. But you kind of think about it, it's a third a day, so about 10 to 15% of the workforce, every day, 10 to 15% of their time is spent on social media doing something that, frankly, you're paying them to entertain themselves. Another one that really jumped out at me was this, and in this politically correct world that we have today, I'm not even sure the kind of questions that you can ask to get an answer like this. But anyway, let's leave that way to one side. 83% of people admit to picking up their cell phone to go to bed. Where to start with this one? Now, I do that. Now, the reason I do it is that my other half, Andrea, she has this alarm clock that was probably built around 1930-something, and it had a klaxon on it, and when it goes off in the morning, I swear to God, it would get up SEAL Team 6 to go attack Al-Qaeda. So you wake up in a cold sweat when this thing goes off. It's like the ship's going down. So I try to get ahead of that and have this nice, quiet little iPhone to wake me up so I get ahead of the klaxon in the morning. That's why I take it to bed. Not sure why everybody else does. Got thinking, maybe it's the apps. We check our bank account. We check email just before we go to bed. We send a last text to a loved one, whatever it may be. But it's probably the apps and the integration of those kind of applications with that phone that is really the draw. That's what keeps us using that thing on a regular basis. And the other thing that really struck me out of all of this, when you kind of stack it all together, is how much work has shifted, how it's become something different over the years. And the tools that we use to do that, even though what we fundamentally do is not that different. We visit customers as a manufacturer, we pitch our goods, the goods will change somewhat, but we still go through somewhat of a process. You've got a more educated buyer today, but hey, that's just the way it is. Things haven't really fundamentally changed in terms of what we do, it's how we do it, and all kinds of ways of delivering these applications that we use to do this work have changed. So for example, you got, go through some alphabet soup. BYOB. Bring your own bottle. Now, I'm old enough to have been in the marketing group where that was actually seen as a valid form of creativity when you were actually stuck with a campaign. So you get to a certain point, it's like, the heck with it, break out the wine, let's see if we can get this thing going again. It always brings back images of Mel Gibson with women's pantyhose jumping around and a glass of wine. I think we got an early view of Mr. Gibson there as he was going to portray in the future. But anyway, BYOB, valid form. I heard another one the other day, BYOC, bring your own cloud. I have no idea what that one means either. Always makes me think of the Abilify advert, where you got your own personal cloud coming out. I don't want something following me around that rains on me all the time. It sounds like a dreadful thing. Whoever came up with that dreadful idea. BYOD. Now, as manufacturers, we love that one. Your device. buy lots of them, take them to work, and therefore we make lots of money. It was a great approach for it. Have somebody believe that it's their device, it's their thing, it's something that they're taking to work. I'd argue that it was subtly different what was going on there. It was probably BYOE. Now, I'm not trying to create another crass little, actually four-letter acronym. I think it was more about the experience that we were having in our private lives and at different workplaces that we were transforming to the workplace that we were in. It was very, very much about things work for me well here. It's a great way for me to do things, operates well for me. I'd like to do that in different places. And so we were taking the experience with us. As soon as we got the control of that device out of the clutches of the CIO, it became a reality that that was something that we could actually do. And so you start looking at this thing and you kind of go, well, most of the data and applications that come with all of these experiences nowadays are really driven by the cloud. If you talk about the individual, it's really not an issue for them. They just kind of, I mean, we use the smartphones as you are right there, sir. Thank you. Almost
anytime.
Anytime, and $5 later. The applications that we actually use on these smartphones, we don't think twice about where the data is held. I mean, I do my banking on my phone all day long. Don't even think twice about the fact that somebody somehow may be able to hack that thing. Don't know if they can, don't know if they can't. But I don't even give it a second thought. You take that across to the work environment. There's not a CFO in the world that is going to allow you access to the financial system via a smartphone. It ain't going to happen. The SEC have got us so afraid that 3 square meals from Uncle Sam is such a terrible thing. And yet in our personal life, we don't know that there's that degree of security. We may be risking it, so somebody can empty our entire bank account and you end up living in a van down by the river. By the way, I bet somebody $100. I couldn't get that into the talk today, so this has been recorded. That's my $100 right there. Thank you. So you then look at the cloud in general. We hear there's a lot of growth in cloud. It's all cloud this, cloud that. Everybody's heading towards the cloud. What does that really mean? Because there are different flavors and different types. So start looking at the cloud today. You've got about a 39% when people are using cloud technologies in the work environment. It's approximately 39%. By the way, the data came from the annual Future of Cloud Computing survey. You find it online, pull out the rest of the details for it. We see that shrinking over a 5-year period. It goes down to around about 32%. Not massive shrinkage, but this is not the growth that we're hearing about in cloud. Hybrid. Hybrid's increasing. And so you've got hybrid today, looking around about 27%, suddenly increasing up to 43% over a period of time. And hybrid being that mix of public and private, really using the right tool for the right job at the right time. But then you talk about private. What does private cloud mean? And what does it mean to the individuals that have to interact with it on a regular basis? So now it's all about security. It's all about compliance. It's the concern of the SEC. It's the concern of losing critical data. And these are advancing automatically. Are you over there advancing, or is this somebody else in the audience that's got one of these? Your time is better than mine, by the way.
Your presentation's been hacked, right?
That's
your bank account.
My bank account's going to be empty as it was anyway. So private, all about security, compliance, control, cost, reliability. These are the watchwords that all of a sudden now you've got the CIO involved in it. So you look at public today, very much leading the pack in terms of where we're actually obtaining applications, where we're keeping data, what we're doing. So public at 39%, and private 34%, hybrid 27%. As you go forward, same picture in about 5 years, you're looking at a very different world where hybrid now is by far and away the majority of what we're doing. So started looking at why. This thing really does have a mind of its own. Started looking at why, and what are the drivers that are really pushing the adoption of cloud? What's really going on behind this? And it really boils down to 3. So you've got scalability, agility, and cost. Now, out of those 3, and by the way, these have been pretty consistent over quite a period of time. You can see scalability down by about 4%, statistically relevant when you're looking at 54.5%. Agility up 1%, and cost down 2%, 48.1%. But fundamentally, these have remained consistent over many years when people are interviewed as to why do you use cloud. So, I was thinking inside shoretel, is there a simple deployment formula? If you can kind of figure out really why people are doing this, is there a nice, simple, easy way that you can work out when cloud would make sense and which model, whether it's public, private, or hybrid? Well, we started picking at this a little bit, and it kind of became clear that when you start looking at it, you're really looking at the department productivity equals employee willpower times budget over the CIO willpower times resources. So what do I mean by this? Anytime you want to do something, time and time again, I hear from the CIO, you can't, you won't, it's difficult, it takes time, you don't understand the project. This is a multi-million-dollar project, not a multi-thousand-dollar project, which is what you're about to put on your credit card as a departmental head. And the issue being that it's simple and easy for somebody like me to start this. So if you look at sales and marketing, a world I'm familiar with, you kind of got a scenario where we often look at Salesforce. Salesforce, you can buy it online, nice, simple, easy way, great CRM, arguably the leader. Though Microsoft and Dynamics come out along, or a bunch of others, I don't mean to insult anyone that's working with a specific vendor out there. Great solutions for CRM. The sales leader, take their credit card, a little bit of their budget, it flies beneath the radar in terms of a long integration project, and before you know it, you're up and running on CRM. The sales leader is now hooked on that data. There's no way you're going to get them off that. The worst part, as far as the organization is concerned, that me as the marketeer, I now look at. So what do? I take my credit card and a small chunk of my monthly budget. I go and buy Marketo, or Eloqua, or Pardot, or HubSpot, or et cetera, any of the others. Again, illustrative more than I have no investment, no interest in these companies beyond being illustrative, just for the record. So you take Marketo, and again, nice, simple, easy to deploy once you've got a Marketo expert. What you've got to do now is try and get these two things actually working together. Now, we're smart marketeers, we know that it doesn't all happen digitally. What happens if somebody calls in? It'd be really great if I could count that as part of my marketing activity and revenue that I'm contributing towards the overall sales number. So I buy it by phone. Yeah, another SaaS application that you've just brought that is only $500-600 a month, nice and simple and easy. We can have this thing up and running in a couple of weeks. It'd be really cool if we could show the sales guys case studies. If they could get the case studies inside SFDC right at the moment when they're actually reaching out to a customer, having the right case studies, the right information at the right time to help them close an opportunity as they're working with the channel partners and consultants. That would be awesome. Let's do that. Now, what about social? Back to my I wish I could get to work on social story, however, different conversation. Shoutlet. Great little application. Shoutlet allows me to really amplify what's going on in all the social channels. So now, real quickly, in a real-world scenario, without involving the CIO, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different applications that are suddenly deployed in the organization. Somebody somehow has got to make all of this stuff work together. And that's really where this kind of falls apart. Because if you just look at my industry alone, my industry I claim as being marketing, so my industry specifically, and you look at the marketing stack, there's a degree of choice out there for a bunch of applications that you might want to deploy at some stage in your life. As manufacturers, we price this all underneath a departmental sign-off, and so it's nice and easy for this to happen. I mean, how many people think that WebEx would have ever become the size that it was if the CIO was actually involved in that decision to use it right from the get-go? Yeah, I didn't think there'd be any takers. Now, over time, of course, it consolidates and things start to pull together. But cloud, realistically, turned it from a small problem into something that's really, really big and complex. And the issue that you've got is availability, accessibility of these kind of applications without a strong consideration of how the things actually work together. And we see it time and time again as manufacturers. We believe we pick up the brunt. I know you guys believe that you really get the brunt of it, and the reality is you probably do as the first line and the first conversation for it. But it becomes a very, very difficult problem the more of this that you actually get deployed within an organization. So if I get really irritated with this now. So if I take a look at the way that this is built up, this one actually it's the first shoretel slide in this, by the way. The rest are just a description about how we think about this thing as a manufacturer. So if I take a look at the way this actually builds up, you've got users and personas that we think about down at the bottom. And we think about people in terms of what you have to do on a day in, day out. We try to think about how you work, who you interact with, what's required to do your job, what are the varying touch points throughout an organization, which is already at odds with my philosophy of I can just buy an application, bring it into the organization, and things will be up and running without any problem whatsoever. You then got devices, and we provide a whole series of devices, and there's the whole BYOD thing, should I say? Booked on that. BYOD as people use their own devices and brought them into the work environment on a regular basis. Analog devices, soft phones, whether we actually do a pretty good dock, mobile devices, etc., but a whole string of devices that actually allow people to interact with their communications platform. You've then got applications from the corporate level on top of that. And by that, I mean these are really the applications that are across the entire organization. Getting pretty quick with that back button now, you've probably noticed that. So these are the applications that are across the entire organization. So you're really looking at a communications platform and what gets integrated into that. You've then got the applications that are at a departmental level that people are looking for that they just want to turn on. Mobility is a great example. There is 0 point in giving everybody, as an example, in the warehouse or the finance organization access to mobility. Or maybe there's a very good point, in which case, hey, go ahead and do it, but that would be an unusual thing. It tends to be the sales guys. It tends to be the people that are out on the road. It tends to be people that are moving around a lot. You don't want to provide it and go through the expense and the difficulty of providing that for every single individual. Or maybe you do. But if you don't, there should be a nice, easy, simple way to do that. Via cloud applications. So at shoretel, we're looking at delivering specific applications that you can turn on and off very, very quickly for individual departments. We refer to this as shoretel Connect. You've got the resiliency and availability of a distributed architecture with the ease and scalability of applications as a service. Real simple, easy way. Now this is changing the way that we look at hybrid. So before we went down this meandering look, hybrid really means private, public, and a hybrid approach of those two. We're kind of changing that a little bit. I'm referring to hybrid as, look, it's also a mix of the installed applications that you have within inside the corporation, and that may be hardware-based as well. And by the way, don't think that we're pushing, look, hardware's the way forward. I've never actually met the person that woke up in the morning and said, today's the day I really want to buy a PBX. I don't know. If you ever meet him, then let me know. I don't think that conversation ever happened in the history of the world. We see a scenario where an awful lot of that new deployments are heading towards a cloud basis. And in fact, if you managed to catch our earnings last week, final plug, I promise, and then I'll get off shoretel, you'll have seen that our revenues are approximately around about 40% on the hosted side. So shifting across very, very aggressively towards a hosted, a cloud play, but we still believe that the prem marketplace exists for a considerable period of time. And so, really, what's this about? Well, to sum it up in one word for you guys, it's complex. And where's the complexity, you get opportunity. And we are really struggling as manufacturers to find go-to-market avenues that really understand this and the ability to deploy it and work in a cohesive manner with the manufacturer to make sense of all of this. So give simplicity a chance. We need, and this is actually a slide, by the way, I thought I'd leave it in here, that we use with end users. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of play that in front of this audience here. But we talk very much about, look, you've got to give simplicity a chance. Things have to work together. You can't keep doing the I'll just buy Marketo, I'll just buy SFDC, I'll just buy If My Phone, I'll buy, et cetera, and end up with this mess of applications that fundamentally don't actually work together, don't behave well together, zero integration, don't actually achieve any of the objectives you set yourself. They have to be made to work together, and you need to understand why things need to work together in the first place, or else you're going to end up in that spaghetti soup again. Start with the end goal in mind. And again, we preach this on a regular basis. If you're going to get involved in one of these projects, it's not about you giving us an order for the equipment. We need you to be a successful and happy customer. We talk a lot about our Net Promoter Score as shoretel. We talk a lot about customer satisfaction. It's very important to us. Only by taking this approach and only by having a go-to-market avenue does this even make any sense. Our NPS scores we've seen drop off a cliff the second that you start to neglect or try to get past these installation issues. The other thing that we tell them that we understand you're better educated and you're better funded than you ever were before. Now there are stats thrown around all over the place. You got 50% of the sale is done before a salesperson is even involved. Some people say 80. The number doesn't matter. It's a big chunk, whatever it is. And so we're finding buyers that are approaching us, but most of that research and most of that understanding, they've already gone through that. So it starts off with the, here's shoretel, and let me tell you, they don't want to hear that. They've already gone through that. The learning has taken place in a different location. They've used peers, they've used the web, they've used case studies, they've used our own information to learn about us, and sometimes against us as well. Very, very smart, educated buyers out there right now. But more importantly, we tell them that you need to consider the hybrid. Bringing it back around to, look, it's not just about private and public cloud in a hybrid environment. You've also got the hardware aspect of it as well. There's an awful lot of bridges, the communication platforms, hardware-based communication platforms that are out there working today that you can sell apps for and integrate applications right now. There's a great market out there for it. So when you kind of really look at things, what really changed in the communications world? Well, comms are still critical. Nothing ever went away there, nothing changed. It's more than a phone. Well, it's more than a phone if you take care of the integration and actually look at the additional applications that you can build into it. If not, it is just a phone. It gives you dial tone and you get to talk to people, and it's that simple. Lots more things are possible, and they're actually useful. I was talking to somebody on the way in here today. I won't name the vendor because that would be unfair, but they were talking about how at one of the large shows they were using iris recognition and all sorts of other wonderful technologies that just sound as if they're great, but absolutely useless when it comes down to the real-world environment of trying to do something. So many, many things today are possible and useful. Great example, if you have... most of the vendors do this, by the way. I don't think it's unique to us. But if you have a shoretel communications platform in place, there is Salesforce.com integration that actually allows you to populate the CRM automatically based on the phone number that comes in. Sit down with a call center and say, hey, I've got a great application for you that's going to take 40, 50 minutes out of your day. They love it. A lot of manufacturers do it as well. Data, though, is really driving the need as to why we communicate. And if you think about this, as you work through it, there's lots of data that we have about a communication solution and our customers that we just don't put together very well. Such as, feels like it would be a really good idea if I knew who my top 10 customers were that I hadn't called in the last year. So it's the data that comes out of it in conjunction with the CRM system that really makes this stuff powerful and valuable. But the move to cloud is making this faster and faster than ever before. The pace of change is happening very, very rapid. And so, I think it was Dave Michaels.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, perfect end there, right? See if that'll come up. And stay up. Thank you. We were talking anyway, at the end of Enterprise Connect, we were talking about what's the future of voice as you start to look at this. And probably a little punch drunk after many, many interviews that have gone on. And it suddenly struck me, really the future of voice is data. It's having that data that's behind the scenes, the analytics that go with it. It's way more than a phone system. You're now into a communications platform that really enables you to configure around the best way to communicate with your customer base and provide the best customer experience. So when you're talking to us about cloud in general, we think about it as much more than just, look, it's a shift and a delivery mechanism and a financial tool. It's really the future. Thank you. A variety of different sectors, which is a non-answer for you, but the real growth we're seeing in finance, we're seeing in education. There are certain areas in manufacturing that are just incredibly healthy. The media and communications marketplace has been incredibly good to us. But we've actually seen a rise in quite a few different sectors, which is why it's hard to say, here's the answer. We think it's due to a variety of different reasons. Part of it is because of this richness of people are figuring out what you can do with a communications platform, but more importantly, they've figured out how to work with a channel and how to actually start to integrate some of this stuff. So instead of us doing, look, slideware and isn't this cool and sexy, versus, wow, we can actually implement this and get this done within a time frame that's acceptable and a cost that is reasonable. So those are really the drivers. The markets that we're growing are those that are more predisposed to see that. Although we also had a little healthy bump in premise as well, as you may have seen from the earnings call. Yeah, go on at the back.
So, as all of the PBX vendors start to morph into offering cloud, hybrid cloud, application, SaaS, everything else, what do you do to distinguish yourself from all the other players out there?
Yeah, that's probably the best question. What we're seeing is you've kind of got people that are saying, look, I'm a cloud vendor, or I'm a prem vendor with aspirations to be cloud. And you kind of put us in two camps as an industry. The cloud side of the house, we feel that at shoretel, I'll speak now as you're asking me, and I'm still up here as a shoretel employee. Shoretel, we feel, when you look at that prem base, that's a real advantage for us. Now, when you look at the cloud companies, and there are some here, I make no apologies for using the names, and I do apologize if I forget any, but 8x8, Interactive Intelligence, Ring Central, West IP, and it goes on and on. Actually, not fair to put Interactive Intelligence in that. I apologize if you hear I retract that. The cloud-only guys, they believe that prem base, that install base, is going to completely flip on its head and be totally cloud at some point. We don't believe that. Now, we believe that there will be a march over time towards more and more interest and more engagement and deployment of cloud-based solutions. But we see that install base that we have as being a real advantage when it comes to the cloud vendors. Now, when you look at those that are claiming they've got prem-based solutions, and they're offering a cloud solution, we feel that the solution that we have is a genuine cloud solution rather than taking an existing product, virtualizing it, multi-tenant, hosting a seat on it, and trying to figure out the billing, etc. around it. You kind of get underneath these things, and I didn't fully appreciate this, so if you call me after this, I'm not the person to get into the technology side of it, but I know that in a previous life, somebody did that too. They took me through it, and where I am now, they've taken me through it. Those two things are very, very different. Now, on the surface, superficially, they may look the same. But I think where it becomes more important is where you end up with a commonality of features and functions versus the prem-based solution and the cloud solution. And back to this use of the word hybrid that I was trying to expand on. Look, hybrid can mean lots of things. We feel that it can mean you've got a central solution that's deployed, a large central solution that's deployed, but you may have remote offices that get spun up and down on a seasonal basis. Why would you put equipment there? Why wouldn't you go cloud there? Just expand the dial plan out. And so, as we look out over the horizon, those will be the key differentiators. In the short term, we believe that we have a great, solid cloud solution that is we can hold our own with anyone else. Was there I can't quite see. I feel like I'm Was there somebody at the back? No, there wasn't. Are we good?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I can only say two words. Simply brilliant.